May 23, 1945, 10:45 a.m., Flensburg, Merwick, northern Germany. A thin mist hangs over the Baltic Sea, like breath freezing on glass in winter. The harbor is completely silent. No sirens, no engine noise, no flags snapping in the wind. Only the soft thud of boots on wet concrete and the low creak of moored ships. This silence is not normal. It is the silence of defeat. Inside the red brick Naval Academy, overlooking the fjord, a man stands perfectly straight. Uniform immaculate, buttons polished, cap perfectly aligned. Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz, the architect of the German U-boat fleet, the hunter of the Atlantic, and Adolf Hitler's final chosen successor. The last head of the Third Reich. The air inside the room is heavy, old, stale, and final. On the table lies a stack of papers, orders, memoranda, signatures, as if a government still exists. But outside, Germany is already dead. Cities reduced to rubble, railways shattered, the army scattered. And now, the British have arrived. Rear Admiral Hugh Vivian Mackenzie steps forward. Armed soldiers follow, but there is no shouting, no weapons cocked. Only a folded document and a single sentence that ends an empire. By order of the Allied Supreme Command, you are under arrest. A moment passes. No movement. Dönitz does not shout, does not resist, does not reach for a weapon. He simply nods, as if this moment is not new to him. Because in truth, he has been expecting it for weeks. This is not just the arrest of a man. This is the moment Germany's future quietly changes direction. 3 weeks earlier, April 30th, 1945, Berlin. Inside a bunker, Karl Dönitz freezes as he reads a radio message. It is short and unavoidable. Adolf Hitler is dead. The Führer's political testament is opened. One name is written inside, a name that surprises many. Karl Dönitz, Reich President. Not Goebbels, not Himmler, not party ideologue. But a naval officer, a professional, a technician of war. Hitler knows Berlin has fallen. The Reich cannot be saved, but he still wants to decide how it ends. Dönitz understands this immediately, and here he makes the decision that will later shape Germany's fate. Flight to Flensburg. Dönitz does not call for resistance. No fight to the last man, no burn everything. He gathers what remains of the government and moves north, away from the Red Army, toward British lines. Destination, Flensburg. By early May, what exists in Flensburg is not a government. It is a ghost. No territory, no real army, no international legitimacy. Only Hitler's final signature. Yet orders continue to be issued. Dönitz has only one priority: save as many Germans as possible from Soviet captivity. Units on the Eastern Front are told, fight only enough to reach the West. U-boats receive secret signals, stop attacking British and American shipping, but without a public surrender. It is a dangerous game. If the Allies realize what is happening, Flensburg could be crushed instantly. But the gamble works. Millions of soldiers and civilians surrender to the British and Americans instead of the Red Army. Every hour of delay saves thousands of lives. For Dönitz, this is not rebellion, it is duty. But the Allies see this very differently. To them, Flensburg is not a humanitarian effort, it is the embryo of a Fourth Reich, and that cannot be tolerated. Germany surrenders, but Flensburg survives. May 7th, 1945, Reims.
General Alfred Jodl signs the unconditional surrender. 1 day later, it is ratified in Berlin before the Soviets. The war in Europe is over, but in Flensburg, meetings continue. Directives are still issued. Dönitz still speaks like a head of state. The line between administration and illusion is dangerously thin, and the British intend to erase it. The arrest. The arrest is not dramatic. No gunfire, no shouting. The government is simply dissolved. Albert Speer, Schwerin von Krosigk, senior OKW officers, one by one, taken into custody. No farewell speeches, just the final symbol of the Third Reich quietly removed. As Dönitz is led away, he looks toward the harbor. British warships stand there, where German naval power once ruled. For a naval officer, no message could be clearer. But the story does not end here. Most history books stop at this moment. The real story begins now. Because Dönitz's capture is not just an accounting of the past, it is a blueprint for the future. Nuremberg, November 20th, 1945. The courtroom is full. Damp stone, cigarette smoke, press, translators, military observers, and above them, the men who once commanded continents. Karl Dönitz sits third from the end. No uniform, no medals, just a dark suit and perfectly straight posture. This is not a man begging for forgiveness. This is a man prepared to be judged on principle. The prosecutor raises the charge: unrestricted submarine warfare, merchant ships, the freezing Atlantic, no warnings. Dönitz does not deny the facts. He challenges the meaning of guilt. Then he delivers the sentence that shakes the court. If I am guilty, then so are the admirals of every navy represented here. Tension fills the room, because the truth is simple. The Allies also conducted unrestricted warfare. In the Pacific, American submarines did exactly what German U-boats did. Suddenly, the law is no longer clean. The court hesitates. Dönitz builds his defense on one idea: a professional soldier separate from ideology. Not a Nazi party member, no racial speeches, no architect of camps. But he never resisted either, and that silence hangs over him. Verdict. Dönitz is guilty, but not completely. Acquitted of crimes against peace, convicted for unrestricted submarine warfare. 10 years in prison. Not death, not life. A balanced verdict. The court draws a line. Punishment, but not one that shatters the system. This decision shapes Germany's future more than it appears. Spandau Prison, 1956. 10 years later, a steel door opens. Dönitz steps out, older, but discipline intact. Outside, Germany is unrecognizable. West Germany, Cold War, NATO, and suddenly, experience becomes valuable again. No official role, but ideas circulate. The Bundesmarine is forming, and here Dönitz becomes a symbol. Not a hero, not a villain, but a warning.
March 2nd, 1960, 3:15 p.m., Kiel Naval Academy, West Germany. A bitter wind rolls in from the Baltic Sea, sharp and unrelenting. Iron railings groan softly as they sway. On the parade ground below, cadets march in perfect alignment, their boots striking wet cobblestones in flawless rhythm. Uniforms are crisp, posture is exact, discipline is visible. This is not the Kriegsmarine. This is the Bundesmarine, West Germany's new navy. Inside the lecture hall, a retired officer stands at the podium. Slides flicker across the wall. Submarine patrol patterns, wolf pack formations, Atlantic choke points. Names appear one after another. Prien, Kretschmer, Lüth. And then, a name that is never spoken loudly, yet is always present. Karl Dönitz. Not as a hero, not as a villain, but as a case study. A navy designed to be different. To call the Bundesmarine a successor to the Kriegsmarine is misleading. It is not a continuation. It is a corrected institution. Everything here has been deliberately redesigned. Civilian control is absolute. Military decisions are made with legal advisors present. No order stands above the Constitution. And, most importantly, an order can be questioned. This single sentence would have been unthinkable in Germany in 1939, and it flows directly from what happened to Karl Dönitz at Nuremberg. Cadets are not taught tactics alone. They are shown courtroom transcripts. In ethics classes, instructors ask questions that once carried no answers. What happens if an order is illegal? Where does duty end? This is not abstract theory. For Germany, it is a survival formula. Dönitz, the teacher without a podium. Karl Dönitz never visits the Kiel Naval Academy. He gives no lectures, wears no uniform. And yet, he is everywhere. His memoirs circulate quietly. They sit on shelves in naval libraries. They are debated in officers' clubs. Every paragraph is dissected. Was this a tactical decision or a moral failure? Was this professionalism or complicity? Is this the voice of a soldier or of a system? Dönitz writes letters, mostly to former sailors. Some seek forgiveness. Some seek confrontation. Some simply want understanding. He never defends Nazism, but he never publicly apologizes either. And that ambiguity becomes his most powerful legacy. Adenauer's Germany, practical morality. In the 1950s and 1960s, West Germany stands in a dangerous position. The Soviet Union lies to the east. Berlin is divided. The old war is in full force. NATO needs a reliable partner, a professional military, and it needs it quickly. Under these conditions, a total moral purge is impossible. Remove every experienced officer, and national defense collapses. So a policy emerges: selective reintegration. Ideologues are excluded. Fanatics are removed. Professionals, after screening, are brought back. Karl Dönitz is not the public face of this policy, but his verdict becomes its blueprint. The message is clear. Excess will be punished. The system will survive. Loyalty now belongs to the Constitution. This is not justice in the classical sense. It is stability. East Germany. No ambiguity allowed. Across the border, the story is told very differently. In East Germany, Karl Dönitz is reduced to a single phrase: fascist criminal. No nuance, no complexity. Here, obedience itself is the crime. The military exists entirely under ideological control. The West's model appears morally compromised. To the West, the East's approach feels authoritarian. Germany is learning two very different lessons from the same past. The 1960s. A new generation asks new questions. As prosperity grows, a new generation arises. University students, the protests of 1968, crowded streets and raised voices. They ask uncomfortable questions. What did my professor do during the war? What is my judge's past? How did so many people escape accountability? Once again, Dönitz's name surfaces, not in protests, but in debates. Should his sentence have been harsher? Did Nuremberg excuse obedience too easily? These questions are unsettling, but this is what democracy looks like. For the first time, Germany is speaking honestly with itself.
The final years. By the 1970s, Karl Dönitz has vanished from public life. A small town near Hamburg. Daily walks, books, letters. Occasionally, a journalist approaches him. His responses are always controlled. No slogans, no regret speeches, no grand justifications. Only silence. In 1980, at the age of 91, Karl Dönitz dies quietly. No state funeral, no public outrage, no celebration. A former head of state who exits history like a footnote. And that, too, is deliberate. The true legacy, a template. Karl Dönitz's greatest legacy is not U-boats, not Atlantic victories. It is a framework. Germany learns that justice and revenge are not the same. Professionalism can be dangerous. Obedience is never morally neutral. The Bundeswehr's guiding principle is not conquest, but restraint. Innere Führung, the soldier as a citizen in uniform. This concept grows directly from what men like Dönitz represent. One arrest that became a system. On May 23, 1945, in Flensburg, the arrest of Karl Dönitz was more than the end of an empire. It was a design choice. The Allies decided who would be punished, who would be integrated, who would serve as an example. Karl Dönitz was not made a hero. He was not made a monster. Instead, he became a boundary. The line where duty ends and guilt begins. The final question. Today, Germany is democratic, stable, a pillar of Europe. But in every military ethics classroom, a shadow remains. A retired admiral's voice, echoing softly. I was a professional. And Germany continues to ask, but was that enough? There may never be a final answer, but perhaps the willingness to keep asking the question is Germany's greatest victory.